Elevators. For most, these metal boxes are nothing more than just a mode of transportation. Like a car, that's sole purpose is to get you from point A to point B. But like all things, even something as mundane as elevators aren't without superstitions. We've all heard the stories about why buildings, specifically hotels, don't have 13 floors, and how it's bad luck to do so. Or how if you find yourself in a runaway elevator, you should jump before it crashes. While the topic of this video does revolve around an elevator, it isn't about any of these superstitions. It's actually even stranger and has to do with a certain cemetery and a childhood memory of mine. Do I have your interest? Good, because I promise you that by the end of this, you'll be just as confused as I am when it comes to this mystery. So you're probably curious as to what the hell I'm talking about, and are even more curious as to what this childhood memory is. To be honest, I'm still trying to answer that first question myself. As for my memory, allow me to explain. You see, ever since I was a child, my brain has been gaslighting me to this very day. When I was young, around the age of 3 or 4, barely old enough to remember anything, my grandpa passed away. And I remember at some point after his funeral, my family and I went to the funeral home to visit his spot at the cemetery or columbarium, I think that's what it's called. Anyway, I remember as we're leaving, we're walking over to an elevator inside a round room. For the longest time, I didn't really think too much about this seemingly small detail because it didn't really seem that out of the ordinary. It's once we're in the elevator that caught my attention, and to this day I still remember it fondly because of how weird it is. Inside the elevator, on the panel with all the buttons, there was one specific button with your stereotypical depiction of a witch on it. And I even remember my reaction to seeing this button and wanting to press it just to see what'll happen. But I've always thought, what the hell is this button for? And why is it in an elevator? Now, I admit, I had a pretty strong imagination as a kid, but this specific thing definitely was not part of my imagination. This one stupid button in an elevator, which mind you, might not even exist in the first place, has had me questioning not only my childhood memories, but my sanity. I remember it so vividly, so there's no way it could just be my mind playing tricks on me, right? It feels so real, and if it was a dream, even a reoccurring one, because I know those exist, that's a thing. All I really want to know is just why. So after years with it being just a lingering thought, a lingering memory, I finally decided to get down to the bottom of this and investigate. And I'll tell you right now, you are not ready for how weird this gets. So let's jump down this rabbit hole, shall we? This is Davis' funeral home, the location responsible for this whole memory. Looking through these photos and this short promotional video, we can see the building in question. A round building that looks decently tall enough to have 2 floors. Except right out of the gate, we have our first red herring. Remember how I said at first I thought nothing of the fact that this supposed elevator was in a round room? Well, looking through these pictures, this is definitely the room I remember it being in, except there's no elevator. There's not a second floor, it's all just one room, so how could we possibly take in an elevator in this room? After doing extensive research that probably would look very sus if anyone ever looked through my searches, I wasn't able to find any record of this building being remodeled or ever having a second floor, let alone an elevator. So now you're probably just as confused as I am and saying, well, now what? But hold on, because there's another building at this same cemetery that's even bigger and matches the description of my memory. As you can see in these photos, this building may not be as round as the previous building, but certainly has some roundness to it, and definitely has a second floor. But it's only when looking through their promotional video that we're given a glimpse of the interior of this building, and in this shot, we can vaguely see that it has a round room on a second floor with stairs leading up to it. And if there's stairs, surely there's an elevator. But but unfortunately, this is pretty much all the photos that I've been able to find of this place, which means that there's only one way I'm going to solve this mystery. I have to take a trip to Davis Funeral Home and investigate it for myself. But before doing that, I wanted to do a little more research and see if anything came up regarding this weird elevator button with a witch on it. My thought always was, because it's a cemetery, the button is to warn the staff of any supernatural or demonic activity. After all, a burial site for the dead is very likely to be haunted, right? I managed to find a phone number for an elevator manufacturer called Liberty Elevators, and as you'd expect, the person I spoke to was very confused as to what I was asking. Thankfully, the lady I spoke to was very polite and understanding and explained that she never heard of such a thing and isn't sure what a button like that could be used for, or why it would be in an elevator of all places. Could this all be a weird and elaborate Mandela Effect? Remembering something that you swear and even know is a certain way, only to be completely shocked to find out that you were wrong and it was never actually the way you remembered it? It certainly seems like that's the case. After all, Mandela effects have a tendency to show up as things that are remembered fondly and are associated with a strong memory from childhood. A lot like this scenario. Some famous Mandela effects, like how Curious George never having a tail despite people claiming that he did at some point, and Pikachu from Pokemon having brown striping on his tail despite never actually having it. Even Fruit Loops being spelled F-R-O-O-T instead of your typical F-R-U-I-T. You see, the idea of the Mandela effect stems from slightly alternate universes merging with our own, causing some people to experience things differently than others. Having memories of something being a certain way, when in fact it was never actually that way to begin with. Maybe all this stuff is just being leaked out of the back rooms. Who knows? So I guess it's back to theorizing then. Mandela effect. The main problem with that is the Mandela effect is when a large number of people experience the same thing differently than how it actually happened. Think of like a mass hysteria event. They're very similar, but they're not the same. So, unless everyone watching this blows up the comments section telling me about how they've all experienced the same weird elevator button, then I think I can safely rule that out. Arriving at the cemetery, I make my way to the 2-story building, nervous and feeling incredibly awkward for walking around a cemetery filming with my phone. So as you can see, I'm inside and there's no elevator in here. This first floor is like a little gathering space, just like in the first building I showed earlier in the video, with the second floor visible from down here. But no elevator to get up there inside the building. That's because the elevator I've been looking for this whole time is actually outside, barely connected to the building. So even the elevator being inside is incorrect, but at this point, I don't care. Here it is. The elevator that's had me questioning my childhood. It's time for the moment of truth. Moment of truth. Nothing. Oh well.
No witch button.
No witch button. And would you look at that? No such button with a witch on it anywhere on this panel. Being honest, I kinda expected not to find anything. I didn't even expect there to be an elevator here. I really don't know how to explain what I experienced as a kid and why almost nothing of what I remember adds up, other than creepy button and an elevator at cemetery. Looks like this is just one of those mysteries that I'll have to take with me to my grave. I swear that wasn't a pun. I recorded about 70% of this video well over a year ago, so I apologize for the first few minutes being really cringy. I knew this video was going to have a creepy vibe to it, and I was trying to sound like one of those paranormal investigator channels, and just kind of gave up halfway through the video. So I promise I'll just speak normally from now on when I'm making these types of videos. I thank you all very much for watching. This was a rather important video for me personally to make, as it's something that's intrigued me for such a long part of my life. And though I still haven't found an answer, I feel like I finally found some closure when it comes to this mystery. It's a question that'll stick with me throughout my whole life, but making this video made me realize that I'm kind of okay not knowing. I do actually have another equally strange experience that I'd love to make a video on, so be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified when that video comes out. And if you guys enjoy this one, who knows, I might actually make this a series where I just share strange and creepy things throughout my life experience.